Hi, welcome to the last video in Coding Bootcamp's object-oriented programming course with Python. This is the second part of our final project, which is the BlackJack program. Today I'm just going to go over some modifications I made to get the program to run, and then we're going to do some documentation to explain everything in the what everything in the program does. And then if you want to look at the source code for the program, it'll be uploaded onto our website. I'm just going to show you what the finished program looks like, so we'll run it. It says, welcome to BlackJack. Player 1, please enter your name. We'll do Dan. Player 2, please enter your name. We'll do Michael. And then enter the number of rounds of BlackJack you want to play. So we'll do 2 rounds. Okay. So the dealer deals 2 cards to every player, and then these are the 2 cards. So Dan gets a 4 of spades, Michael gets an ace of clubs, the dealer gets a 9 of spades. Then Dan gets a 5 of diamonds, Michael gets a king of diamonds, the dealer gets a face down card. So everyone, including the dealer, has been dealt their 2 cards, and then we ask player 1, who's Dan, if he wants to hit. So Dan has a 4 of spades and a 5 of diamonds, so that's 9 points. So the goal of the game is to stay at 21 points or as close to it without going above as close as you can. So if he has 9 points, you'd probably want to hit. So we'll do yes. So he gets a king of hearts. So that means he's at 19 points. So we probably don't want to hit anymore. So we'll enter N for no. And then he'll just stay. Michael, do you want to hit? Michael has a king of diamonds and an ace of clubs. So we only program the ace to have a point value of 1. If you want, you can go back and modify the code after this, after we get through this program, and make it so aces could be 1 or 11 points, like in the actual game. But for this program, aces are just 1. So Michael has 11 points, so he probably wants to hit. He gets a 6 of hearts, so that means he's at 17 points. Let's make him bust, because we want to test to see if one player wins and one player loses. We want a difference of points. We want to see someone win. So we'll just make Michael bust. Okay, so Michael busts, so he loses. Dan should have 19 points. So he got a 4 of spades, a 5 of diamonds, and a king of hearts, so he's got 19 points. The dealer stopped at 17 points after the cards he was dealt. So the dealer got a 9. The dealer's face down card was a 2, so he had 11 points. Then he got dealt a 6 and stopped at 17 points. So Dan wins a round, and then we play our second round. So Dan should have 1 point, or a score of 1. Michael should have a score of 0, and no one else should have any points. So let's just bust everyone else. So yes, Dan busts, yes. Michael busts. The dealer's face down card is a 2 of clubs. The dealer busts. Okay. So Dan has a score of 1. Dan wins BlackJack because he won the first round. Now, this didn't affect the outcome of the games. This didn't affect the outcome of the second game because we made sure to bust both players just to test our code. So everything's working except for the fact that we didn't reset our point value when a new round started. So all we have to do is go to the beginning of the play round function and make player 1.points equals 0 and player 2.points equals 0. So I'll just copy this. Player 1.points equals 0 and player 2.points equals 0. So what this is going to do is every time we use our play round function for a new round of BlackJack, it's going to reset the player's points to 0. And then we're not, because the reason we got to 38 points and 42 points for Dan and Michael is we added the point totals for the cards from round 2 onto the point totals from round 1. Now it didn't affect who won the game because we made sure to bust both players, but that would affect it going forward. So that's just a small bug. But yeah, that's how the BlackJack game plays, and then at the the program prints the point values for the player hands and the dealer's hand at the end of each round, and then awards a score based on who wins compared to the dealer. And then after all the rounds have been played, we print out the score at the bottom. And points is the number of the point value of the hands, the player hands, in a single round. So if you have a king of hearts and you have a 7 of clubs, that's a point value of 17. Score is how many rounds the person's won. So that's the difference between score and points. So Dan won 1 round, so he's got a score of 1. Michael won 0 rounds, so he's got a score of 0. So Dan wins blackjack because he won more rounds than Michael, and then the program exits. So that's what our program looks like. And now I'm just going to go over the code really quickly, and we're going to document everything as we do it. Because when you have a lot of code like this, you need to document everything so it's clear what's going on for other people and for yourself if you're going back and making modifications to your code. Okay, so we have a card class. Card class is just used for card objects. Used to create cards in a standard playing deck. Player class is just used to keep track of players and their scores, or their scores and their hands, and the cards in their hand. So I'll just say points is point value of cards in a player hand. Score is number of rounds won. So again, this is why documentation is important, because if you don't document this, it's very confusing what points mean compared to what score means. Because they can mean the same thing if you're not clear about what they actually mean. So our deal card function, it takes in a player object and it takes in a deck object. So it's going to take in a deck as an array because I moved the deck out of the class and I just put it in the play round function, so it's over here. So I decided it would just be simpler to make a deck array for this program because it's small, rather than make an entire class for a deck. So the deal card function is just going to take a card from the player's player hand, like over here. Or no, it's going to take a card from the deck array, which is going to hold all the cards in the deck for a round, and then it's going to put it in the player's player hand, and player hand is over here inside the class. So when you create a player object, that player object is given a player hand, and then that player hand we're going to put in cards using the deal card function. And then every time we put in a card into the player hand, we take it out of the deck. So takes a card out of the deck and puts it in player hand. Okay, and just to review quickly what these 3 lines are doing, we want to pick a card index that's a random card index between we want to pick a random card index from 0 to 51 at the start, but as we remove cards, it's going to be like 0 to 50, 0 to 49, 0 to 48. So we're just picking a random card index of the remaining cards in the deck array. We're assigning it to a variable, and then we're going to use that variable to add that card to the player hand and then remove that card from the deck array. So that's what these 3 lines are doing. This is getting us the random card index, or the random position of the card in the deck array. This is adding the card to the player hand, and then this is removing it from the deck using the pop function. Okay, so play round plays 1 round of blackjack. Print statements are usually pretty self-explanatory, so you don't always have to explain what they're doing. So player 1 points is 0, players 2 points is 0. So we'll just put resets player hand value every round. Our deck array is, anytime there's anything that could be vague about what it means, that's when you should comment. Our deck array is the game deck. We have a suits and a faces array to compare. Suits faces are used to compare cards and find their point value. This creates the deck. This block of code, this deals a card to a player, deals a card to player 1, and gives player 1 corresponding points based on the card they're dealt. They are dealt. Card and points for player 2. I'm just gonna write this as shorthand for what I wrote up here. So card and points for player 2. Card and points for dealer. Then card and points for player 1. Card and points for player 2, and then card and points for dealer. Okay. And this last card, the second card for the dealer, is face down, and then we reveal it later in the game. Okay. So now we have these player 1, player 2, and dealer hit variables. So these are used to keep track of the number of cards added to the player hand. So the reason why it starts at 1 is because 1 is the index of, so I'm just going to put this, keeps track of index of hit cards. So each player at this point in the game has 2 cards from being dealt them at the start of the game. So I assigned 3 variables, the value 1, and I called them player 1 hit, player 2 hit, dealer hit. And that's the index of the second card in each of their hands. But what we're going to do is, once we get to each player and we have them start hitting cards, we ask, for example, we ask player 1 if they want to hit. If he enters Y for yes, we'll deal him a card, and then we'll increment player 1 hit. So player 1 hit will be 2. So when player hit is 2, that's the index of the third card in the player hand. And then we're going to use that as the index to print the value of that card. So it's going to print the face and the suit. So that's why you see player 1 dot player hands suit and face, and player 1 hit is in as the index. So this is going to print the value of the third card, the face and the suit. And then we're going to compare that third card, the face of it, to our faces array from up here. This is our faces array. I can move this down. I'll move this down here. Actually, that wouldn't be a good idea, because we're using the faces array for other stuff. Keep it up here. So we're going to use this faces array, which we have up here, and has the strings for all 13 of our faces for the cards. And then we're going to compare that to the face of the third card we were just dealt. So player hit goes to 3, or no, it goes to 2, which represents the third card that we just dealt up here. We print what that third card is, and then after we print what the third card is, we give a point value to that player based on what the face is. So this represents the face of the third card, and then this represents the corresponding face position in our faces array, which just keeps track of all the possible faces that you could have on a card. So we say if y is less than 10, player 1 points is you add y plus 1. So if the faces card is like a 3 of spades, or the face is 3, then we add 3 points because the position of y is 2. And then 2 plus 1 is 3, and then we add 3 points to the player total. And then if the that's for y is less than 10, so that's the cards ace through 10. And then for all of our face cards, like king, jack, and queen, we just add 10 points flat. So just to go over this a little bit more quickly, we deal a card, we increment player hit to the index of the new position in the player hand. So at the beginning, player hit is incremented to 2. So 2 is our index, which means it's the third position in the player hand array, which means it's the third card. Then we print what the third card is, which is what you see over here on the first hit of the first round. So when we ask Dan, do you want to hit, and he gets the king of hearts, this print statement is printing the king of hearts. And it's the third card in the player hand because Dan was already dealt 2 cards. Then we have for y in range 13. So range 13 is all the possible faces. So there's 10 face values, ace through 10, and then the other 3 are jack, queen, and king. So there's a total of 13. And then we compare. We try to find where in the face array the face of the card we just dealt is. So the king of hearts, that would be position 12 in our array, in our face array. So if we scroll up here, we have ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to king. This is position 12. Well, it's position 12, but it's the 13th value in our array. Because all the way up to 10 is our 10th value, jack is our 11th, queen is our 12th, king is our 13th, but it's position 12 because the array is always started at 0. So we found that king was in position 12. So because it's in position 12, which is y is the position in the faces array, and y is not less than 10, we go in here and we just award 10 points to the player based on the king being in his hand. If the player was dealt like a 3 of spades, then 3 of spades would be position 2 in the array. But we need to award 3 points. So if y is position 2, 2 is less than 10, we go in here. We don't want to award 2 points, we want to award 3 points. So 3 of spades, it's position 2, we add 1 to the position. So 2 gets incremented to 3, and then you add 3 points to the player points. So that's how you add points for cards that aren't jack, queen, king, and then this else statement is for the ones that are. And then finally, if the player goes above 21 points at any point, we break out of the while loop and we print the player busts. So the player loses the game. And again, all of that's inside of a while loop because we want to allow the player to hit as many times as they want until they go above 21 points or they say they don't want to hit anymore. So this condition will keep testing to see if the player wants to add cards to their hand, and then if the player goes above 21 points, we'll automatically break out of it and they'll automatically lose because they bust. Then we do the exact same thing for player 2. So let's just put some code here. While loop controls adding cards to player hands and assigning point values. And then these would be assigns point values, or assigns points to player based on card added to hand, but busts the player. Okay, and then this adds cards and assigns point values to player. This assigns point values, assigns points to player, and then this busts the player. Okay, so that's player 1 and player 2. So they're done hitting for whatever cards they want, and then now we have the dealer. So we reveal the dealer's card, and then we do the same thing for the dealer. So this is dealer hits until he busts or has at least 17 points. And then this gives dealer points. Whoops. Gives the dealer points based on cards added to hand. And then busts dealer or stops the dealer from getting cards. Okay, this should be indented because it should be part of the while loop. And then we print the points for each player at the end of the round, and then these last two statements, last two if statements, print print the players that won and assigns them points, or assigns them a score for winning if they won. Okay, and then this is the main program that plays all of the rounds and creates the player objects. Okay, plays as many rounds of blackjack as the players want, and then determines the winner of blackjack. So yeah, that's how the game works. This is what it looks like. And yeah, just always remember to document your code at the end of a program, or else it's going to be hard for you to see at a glance what exactly code does. So it's not just used for others; it's also used for you if you want to make modifications to code. So there are some bonuses you could do if you want to sharpen your Python skills. You could make the deck objects that I just made an array, you could make it into a class. I think in this case it might be a little bit more complicated because we're doing a pretty simple card game, but maybe for more complex card games you'd want a deck class. Also, another thing you could do is there's a lot of repetitive code here. So you could make a function that determines the number of points players are assigned based on the card they're dealt, and then replace this block of code that's repeated with the function. And yeah, that's about it. You could also make the ace values 1 or 11 points, but that would probably add a lot of complicated decisions to the game. And then you could also add how to split cards. So in blackjack, if you get, say, like 2 sevens, like a 7 of hearts and a 7 of spades, then you're allowed to play 2 hands at once and split the sevens into 2 separate hands. But that's all functionality you can add to the program. This is meant to show classes and how to use them, but not actually get that in depth into what the game of blackjack is actually like. So yeah, this is our final project. I hope you learned a lot about classes, and thanks for taking the course. Bye.